Greetings, 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 Goddess Body, Mind, Spirit community. This is Tyra Omilade, your Goddess Guru, your sister friend. And you know, I love helping women align with their life purpose using the power of ancient wisdom and the goddess centered lifestyle. I want to start off by saying happy Juneteenth 2024 to all the fam out there. I actually rarely talk about any holiday, either because I feel conflicted about the holiday or it's just a sensitive one. You know, even Mother's Day. I never wish anybody a happy Mother's Day on my platform because it can be such a sensitive topic. I am one of those people who has it's a very complicated holiday for me at times. But Juneteenth is one of those holidays that one of the very few that you'll ever hear me talk about outside of like spiritual, like I like the spiritual holidays, you know? And it's because I found Juneteenth in my early 20s when I lived in Texas for a short while. And yeah, to see that it is a national holiday actually for me is mind blowing. And I want to take this time to honor this day in my own way by making a special Juneteenth message. And I want to just say that for me, honoring the ancestors is so fundamental to my being that to not have a special day to honor the ancestors, it's like, how did we ever do this? I'm grateful for Dr. King Day to me, even though it's honoring his legacy, that is another day where we get to take time to honor African American ancestors, Juneteenth, African American ancestors, uh, just such a discredited group of people for a number of reasons. And so, yeah, we have to understand, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why ancestors are so important. In my view, not only to African Americans, but diasporic Africans. I consider all of us who look Black, we got ancestors that come from Africa, okay? No matter where we are, no matter what our language looks like. If we're in the diaspora and we transcend from people who left Africa, especially the ones who were stolen from Africa, then this message applies to you too. The importance of honoring the ancestors is tantamount to our healing of the rupture that happened in our lineage and our people. And I do wanna just add that, because I need this to be very clear, I'm a Pan-African, been a Pan-African for, it's whenever I started learning about Marcus Garvey in my early 20s, Pan-African. I love Afro people, here for all of us. Um, and today I am going to talk about the Afro people who I know the best, me and my people, African Americans, just a little bit about me. I am born to people born in Mississippi. My parents are from Vicksburg, Mississippi. You do not get more Southern than me. um, though I was born in Alaska, my dad was in the military. That gave me an opportunity to not just be locked into Mississippi culture, but we landed back there when I was 7. So I am firmly and fully African American from South USA because we are culturally different in some regards here in the United States also. It just all depends on where you were raised up. Now, my father has people out of Louisiana, and it is that part of my culture that I think there has to be something there that has led me into what I call my gumbo spirituality. Gumbo spirituality is what I believe is what makes African Americans so unique. Our culture got so stripped from us in terms of like being able to experience it consciously every day. It was in us because we did express it. but it got so ripped from us that we've been having to just make up a whole new, well, I've heard people call it new Africans, just step into being completely and totally a new version of Africans. And it's gumbo spirituality or just gumbo in general. When we think about how do you make gumbo? It's you take a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You put it in a pot, boil it down, baby. It's delicious. It's a delicacy at this point. Um, and so that's to me, that is African Americans. We this is how we have been able to become a very, very strong people. And it's one of the reasons I love Juneteenth. It's a day that was created by us, and it is now enshrined in the United States as a national holiday where people get time off. Ah. Anywho, I descend from Louisiana people also, and we have our own type of spirituality down there. I was not privy to it as a child, but I know that it has influenced who I am and what I am. And so, what I want to talk about today is the importance of tapping into the power of Afro spirituality, especially when it comes to the ancestors. To me, this is an ancestral holiday. And for, again, foundational. So I want to just kind of speak to those right now who don't understand why in the world would anybody turn and go back to an African spiritual tradition. It is because of the rupture that we experienced. We can literally feel it in our bodies. And though I appreciate the culture that my people have created in all the variations, because we're not a monolith, we all have our own way of experiencing African American culture. And there are so many of us who feel that space, who know we got the ancestors. We know they exist because I'm here, but we have no idea of who they are. Cool believe it's a whole bunch of people with other ancestral lineages, and they don't know nothing about their ancestors either. We just, in general, have lost the importance of connecting with the ancestors. But um, why would we do this? Well, we feel that space. And in my studies and just my growth and my evolution as somebody who is initiated, and just to let you know, I had a call as a little girl, like, I just feel different spiritually. I remember feeling like there was somebody talking to me, but I didn't realize it was the ancestors. And just as I got older, I got more and more curious. Who were my ancestors, especially spiritually, before the transatlantic slave trade? And, I loved, being a part of the Black church. I was a part of the Black church. I was a part of the Catholic church. I was part of the Black Catholic church. And as I got older, I just kind of felt like I need church to be culturally, it needs to represent me culturally. But there always just seemed to be something off for me when it came to Christianity. Although I really was Christian, it was like this is my spiritual walk. This is what I do. I went to church, I've tithed, I, learned so much about the teachings and applied them. But, when you have a destiny that is calling you to something else, you will never be comfortable where you're not supposed to be. And so I want to just preface this with saying I never, ever will bash Christianity. You will never hear me do this. I'll never forget. Um, an African priest said to us, young people, as we were learning about Afro spirituality, you can't dog Christianity. He said, don't do that while I'm here. My mama was a Christian. She was a good Christian woman. You ain't going to dog Christianity. And I thought, that's good. Because that is a part of, as I am gumbo, I embrace Christianity as a part of my ancestral lineage because my mama was a Christian. I'm married to a Christian, and it is the religion that got us to where we are. So many of us, not all of us were raised up in the church, but a lot of African Americans were. So this is not that. But when I decided I got to answer this call, I found Ifa. I want to say it started with Queen Afua, then Iyanla Van Sant, meeting some people who were studying, they were just in college. This is, to me, one of the good reasons for going to college. Um, Even though I believe in get a scholarship or go to the college that charges you the least amount of money. But yeah, I met Kanumi from California. He had this book about Ifa. I remember David and Tasha, they were like super black. And I don't really remember how much we got into spirituality, but I know we were very Afro. I was around, even my husband, just all of us were very pro black. I went to Spelman College and, you learn about history. For me, I learned about history there. It was a cultural experience. And it was just like this deepening of me wanting to know more. And I got to a point where I was like, we're learning everything about the culture but the religion. And I just decided one day, this thing is calling me. I'm taking a leap. And that's when I jumped into the Ifa spiritual tradition. It's out of Nigeria. There's other cultures that I think we could attribute it to, but it's just easier to say Nigeria. And so that's where all of this started for me. Many of you have heard me talk about when my mother passed. That's really when this connection to the ancestors started becoming stronger for me. So in my studies around, just into the spirituality of Africa, I began to hear the Babalawos, which are the male priests. There are three in particular whose names I want to give credit to. My teacher, Baba G, Baba Kolioso, um, and then Baba Shango Dari. He might go by a different name, but Gan Philosophy, Gan Philosophy, and Baba Obafemi of OIDSI. They are the three who I heard say this. And maybe Baba G sent me something else. So I can't give credit to whatever this thing was he had me read. But he talked about how African Afros here in the diaspora, especially here in the United States, we have to work with the ancestors because of the rupture that happened with the transatlantic slave trade. And I also think that it's connected to the colonizing of Africa has turned a lot of the continent away from, their the spirituality that was born right there. And I believe that we over here in the diaspora were meant to keep it alive. And of course, we've got to give credit to the brothers and sisters in the Caribbean because, and, I'll even say South America because of Brazil, because Africans came and for whatever reason, this version of spirituality is what really took root there. And it's because of our exposure to the Caribbean that we were like, hey, wait a minute, what is this? And those who were raised up with these traditions in Cuba and Trinidad and Brazil, Puerto Rico, bringing that spiritual tradition here. I even want to honor the tradition of Rastafarianism in Jamaica. There was so many ways that those of us whose ancestors were brought here, we kept this thing alive or they kept it alive so that once we got to this point where it's like, oh, wait a minute, I hear a call, we had a reference point that we could go to, right? So beautiful. And those of us here in the United States, we have our own special calling. and it is the calling of the ancestors, because our people, we cannot heal until we heal our ancestral lineage. And once we begin to heal that, then it's like I'm noticing what happens is we become more like unto ourselves, and we get to be authentically who and what we came here to be. And we just get to be people who come here, and it's not all about healing trauma. But, come on, please let us embrace this. If you are human, you're going to have to heal trauma. Okay? It's just what it means to be human. Part of the human trajectory is there's going to be trauma that must be healed. And so, um, to me, this is why it is so important for us to embrace the spirituality of our ancestors. It is very healing for a lot of us who say, I must go back. And that does not mean that people can't get their healing not doing this work. But I want to talk to the ones who have been somewhat hoodwinked and bamboozled into thinking to do anything other than the religion that you have is going to send you into hell. In my worldview, it's just not true. We just pick what we want to believe in and what we want to engage in, and we just do it, and it's going to work. Everyone gets to choose their spiritual path. I do believe that there are certain things that are etched in stone before we come back. And one of those things is the spiritual path that you're going to be on. The expression of it might be different. You have that variety, or that the way to customize it once you get here. But there's no one path. The spiritual family that I come from, we say this: many paths, one truth. And though I'm initiated into Ifa, the way I practice Ifa is very different from the way that, the people who I initiated with practice it. Each one of us practiced, let's say it was 16 of us that initiated that day. I don't remember the number. It was a lot of us. But let's just say those of us who initiated, if it was 16 of us, it's 16 different expressions of us experiencing Ifa. That's just how it is. When we look at any religion, everyone is kind of doing it in their own way, right? That's it. So, I do believe that spiritual paths are, you know, that's on our agenda before we descend from the ancestral realm and come here into our mother's womb. So, if you hear the call, I encourage you to answer it. And I know a lot of people who never actually put down the religion of their childhood necessarily. They just infuse it. It just all becomes one big, that's why I call mine gumbo. Becomes one big pot of gumbo. Um, so ancestors, why are they so important? Outside of the need for us to heal our ancestral lineage so that we can just actualize ourselves and live what I consider to be non-traumatic. Oh, boom. Okay. The ancestors want me to tell y'all this. We want to live lives that's not just based around trauma, right? We want to live lives where we get to honor our ancestors and just make the most of life. Most of the women I work with are just like, I want to live the life of my dreams. And so, yeah, it takes us doing some ancestral healing and working with the ancestors. So, what the ancestors want me to tell y'all is what they told me. So, first and foremost, they are not weak. They were not weak. This was very powerful spirits to be able to endure that transatlantic slave trade. Now, these same Babalaos that I mentioned earlier, especially Baba Shangadari and Baba Obafemi, they're like, what happened that the ancestors would allow that transatlantic slave trade? to occur? I was like, that's a very good question. What did happen? There was a plan of some sort. I don't know the full answer, but what I will say is the ancestors told me years ago, you sit up here, you talking about how you victimized your ancestors were. We were not victims. Okay. Being trafficked it will victimize you. It will mess up that nervous system, which is what we're going to talk about. How we going to regulate this nervous system of our ancestors, which is going to regulate our nervous system. The stuff that I'm learning about, like healing from the inside out. So they said we were very powerful, wise souls to be able to get on those ships or be forced on them, cross that Atlantic River, and land on all these different lands in the Americas. All right. They were like, we were no punks. And I mean that, like we weren't scared. I want to make that may not have been the best word to use. I do my best to make sure I'm appropriate. We weren't weak. That's what I mean. Um, and we did what we did for you. And so you're gonna put some respect on our names by standing your butt up, going out there, showing up and doing whatever it is that you were put here on this earth to do. Do we have it clear? Are we making ourselves clear? I was like, whoa. And so that is a message that I really want to offer to you all that, you know, part of the reason we work with the ancestors is because we stand on the shoulders of a very strong people. And one of the things that I love about ancestral reverence is, as it is taught to me in Ifa, the very first energies that we can work with that will get us results in our lives is, in fact, the ancestors, because the ancestors have a vested interest in you, in me, because I subscribe to reincarnation. We're going to be coming back. They're like, man, I got to help get this part straight right here because, it's like I got something to do when I come back and I got to make sure she's good, he's good, they're good, whatever they're doing in their lives so that, because I'm going to be carrying on that part of the lineage. And they could have been the ones that kind of got it started. They left. And then the next one was supposed to pick up the lineage and keep it going. Like the ancestors have a vested interest in who we are and what we do because we do reincarnate. Okay. So it's important for us to understand that we need to reach out. We need to work with our ancestors because they want to work with us. I often imagine ancestors sitting in a room around us on a couch, on the chairs, just kick back like she need help, but she won't ask. We can only help her when her life is really on the line. Who would not want that kind of help? You know what I mean? And once you try the ancestors, it's like there's no question. I know for a fact these ancestors is real. They here helping a sister out. All right. So yeah, we need to heal our ancestors in order to step into our power. And we need to think about this ancestral lineage because if we understand how powerful they are to be able to endure all of that, live that, specifically for us here in the United States, people act like white folk freed us. White folk didn't free us. We fought to get freed. All right. We maybe worked, in tandem with them, but white folk didn't free us. You cannot just oppress the human spirit and it lays down. Please honor our ancestors by every day taking time to learn something new about an ancestor. And we will hear, I posted one the other day about this ancestor was like, I got to get out of here. So much so, I'm getting in a box and shipping myself from the South to the North. I might die, but I'm shipping myself on this box in this box. Bad Mama Jamma. It was a male, but still, my mama would say, "Bad Mama Jamma." Strong king, right? Um, man, man, when you realize what you stand on, but when you understand that part of our spirituality from our ancestors involved actually walking with the ancestors day in and day out, you never feel alone. You always know somebody's got my back. You call leagues and leagues. I mean, when we really, if we even just, I hear people talk about, so we had our parents, and then we have our parents' parents, and then their respective parents. It's like all these great grandparents and great grandparents, and it's these different sets. How many, how many, I mean, it was just like just thinking about the people who conceived that led to me being conceived, that led to you being conceived, is so many. If we didn't even just think about the cousins and the aunties, we just thinking about the grandparents and beyond. It's so many of them to send leagues of these ancestors out to help family members. I don't know what's going on with all the family members. I tell the ancestors every day, be with the young people in my family. I don't know what they're facing, but I'm gonna need y'all to cover them and be with them and ask them to have them call somebody, call me, whoever, when they at their wits end. This is the power of the ancestors for those of us that this resonates with. All right. Now, I want to go back to this nervous system. So, this disruption that has happened has completely and totally aggravated our nervous system as a people. It's something that I'm just really coming into the realization about. But this is why we work with the ancestors and we honor them, and we do healing work around the greater collective ancestors as well as the our bloodline. And it is because our nervous system got so traumatized and whacked out with this horrendous the horrors of the slave trade, the horrors of slavery. And so this is why the healing must happen. This is why we have to do healing. But the best thing you can do is heal your own nervous system and then channel that energy back. There's a lot of work that I'm learning how to do on how to heal you in a way that it goes back and heals our ancestral lineage. I was actually introduced to this work through my godmother, Iya Oshinike, my teacher, Iya Oshinike. And I'm learning more tools to actually do this, but it's really simple. This is what I always tell people: heal you, heal you, get your nervous system settled to the point where you can invite in abundance, where you can express yourself, where you're not afraid to stand out and show up and be whoever you are and whatever, your work is in the world. Or, sometimes it's just in relationships. We just find this toxicity that gets passed down one generation from the next. And it's just dysfunction in relationships, or it's dysfunction or malfunctioning of the bodies. And it stems from ancestral, our ancestral wounds. And this is all about how can you bring your body, it's so much in balance that it gets channeled back to your ancestors. But it's the collective ancestral nervous system that we are all working to bring healing to. And this is one of the reasons why it's so important for us to embrace Afro spirituality, because when we start, like, okay, I'm going to be 100. Let me finish my sentence. Because when we have deities that look like us and we connect with the energy of the spirituality from back then before the slave trade that helps to soothe our nervous system. It's one of the reasons that so many Black people want Afro spirituality. And I do want to just honor, the Akan tradition, uh, the spiritual tradition out of Haiti, the Vodun tradition. I don't know all the names, but all of the indigenous traditions of Afro people from the continent. Oh, the Kemetic tradition, the Egyptian tradition, because not everybody is trying to initiate in the Ifa, but it's a lot of us that are returning to these Afro traditions. I've even heard people look at, you know, the voodoo tradition of African Americans out of New Orleans, Nowlands. Um, they want to return to that. But when we go back to the traditions in Africa before the rupture happened, there's something about connecting with that religion that soothes our nervous system. Okay. Now, I want to just offer a caveat. Ifa has suffered from colonization, patriarchy. It can be one of the most toxic religions. I think any of these doesn't matter if it's, one of the versions of it in South America, the Caribbean, or, the Akan religion or voodoo, any of it can end up being something very toxic. And it's because, humans do what humans do, period, full stop. There is no perfect group of people on the face of the planet. As much as I love Black people, I know we got to heal, grow, and evolve too, right? We've got our own lessons that we've got to embrace. But there can be flaws in all of this, right? So that's when having a good teacher comes in handy and finding the teacher who resonates with you. I'm very Afro. However, for me, it was very important. This goes back to me and my gumbo spirituality. It goes back to I need a religion where women are respected. And I just found that there is that built into Ifa, but it's not always expressed through Ifa. Ifa is perfect, but the expression of it through people, it can be one where the men dominate. And it used to be there was a lot of stuff men could do, women couldn't do. There's been people that kind of get excommunicated and stuff like that because they were like, no, we're going to give the women power, you know? But I guess you could say the closest thing I would relate to what I do out of that tradition would be the Aj, the Iyami tradition, which is more of like, that's the feminine part of that tradition. It's like it was taken out of it and brought over so that you don't necessarily initiate an Ifa, but those energies, I call them the ancient mothers, those energies were like, we need more women to be here. We need more women to be walking in their power. I can't be a part of a religion that doesn't have some expression of the supreme deity being she. It's just who I am. But I started out with Ifa. I love the goddesses. That was satisfying. I love the Afro part of it. And it was so healing. It was like if I did not initiate into that tradition, I would be so lost. It brought so much healing and continues to bring so much healing to me. I love, love, love Afro spirituality. And in it bringing healing to me, I've been able to heal so much of my ancestral lineage. And I feel like my children have a very strong lineage to stand on. And my husband has his version of this because he descends from pastors. His grandfather was a pastor. His father was a pastor. He's a pastor. And I never knew his grandfather, but I know him and his father, very pro-Black people. And so we all get to have these beautiful traditions. and expressions of them. But anywho, um, this is part of the reason why I want to just encourage people, if you need to jump on over. You're gonna be fine. You will bring healing to your ancestral lineage. You'll bring healing to you first, and then you'll bring healing to your ancestral lineage. And it doesn't have to be any particular way. I sometimes kind of feel like the more you can just allow spirit to lead you, the less confused you're going to be. That's what I find. It's why I love my goddess tradition. It's just kind of like no rules. All I have to do is listen to, my inner guidance, and yeah, yeah, the healing. So today we honor the African American tradition as expressed through this beautiful holiday, Juneteenth. We celebrate our, you know, un our unending pursuit for liberation and the ability to just gumboize anything, you know, to take nothing, to have nothing and create something from it. That is the beauty of the people, the Africans of which I transcend, African Americans. And though the word got to several groups of people, there's Juneteenth, and I really want to honor August the 8th in Clarksville, Tennessee. Or in Tennessee, it's a big day. We were not, Juneteenth isn't the only date, but it is the one that represents what happened for a lot of people. We got the message late, and what do we do, baby? We celebrated. We celebrated. They celebrated down in Texas until all of us woke up. All of us woke up, and now we all get to celebrate this day to honor our ancestors who said we will not stop fighting for our freedom, because there's future generations that are depending on what we're doing today. We're going to keep fighting. It's not natural to be enslaved to another man, another woman, another person. You kidding me? This ain't natural. This ain't normal. And the kind of enslavement they had, baby, that ain't natural. So we give thanks. We give thanks that the ancestors thought enough to be like, oh, heck to the no. That the ancestors thought enough to say, you know what? I'm going to figure out how to make a living out of what I do. Some made very little money and lived in poverty, but doggone it, they woke up every day and they did what they could. They made the most of what they had, and we honor those ancestors. We don't give enough credit to the ones that just lived and did the best they could in a country that hated them. We honor the ancestors that jumped off off those ships and said, nah, bruh. I got to be free to the point where I'm jumping. We honor all the ancestors. We honor the ones who were like, you know what? I'm going to come up with this idea. This idea just came to me. Black Inventions Museum, look it up. Brother Khalid, I can't think of his last name, or wherever you can find Black inventions. Think about all the museums that are in this country that honor Black people. Music. We have the big one, the Smithsonian in DC. Music, all kinds of art. I mean, some of the most powerful were in the church doing their own version. Think AME, CME. And I don't care how dysfunctional some of it became, it's who we are. When I think about Black gospel music, and then when my husband recently went to Rwanda, and was in church with Africans, man, them Africans, African Americans, baby. We take that Christian music and we take it to the next level. I celebrate every piece of my culture. I think about the ones who were like, you know what? I'm going to work on being, I was born to be an actress, an actor, some type of artist. I'm going to do it. We learn about the ones who um, created, they were scientists. Think about just so many African Americans who got educated and we don't realize it because, we can't depend on the history books in school. We have to do our own studies. And then we have to keep teaching our children, and we have to have community events and celebrations to make sure, because we come from an oral tradition. So we have to make sure we keep talking about the ancestors. We have to make sure we keep talking about the ancestors and our families who have done great things. It's not, we are so affluent nowadays. When I think about my in-laws both had degrees. Now, my mother-in-law got hers earlier in life, her first one. Was she the first? Of her siblings, I don't know if any of the other siblings had degrees. And she even had a master's degree. My father-in-law was in the military, and, even just his experience in the military, he golfed in the military. He was like, that was his job. He traveled all around the world. He was a part of some special force. I can't remember the name of it. Maybe Delta Force or something like that. Um, he did a lot of things that you would not expect to hear that a Black man did. And I had totally forgotten he got a bachelor's degree because he went to seminary. It's like, it almost seems like it's no big deal. That's a very big deal. And we have to remember these kinds of stories. Even my father, I saw an ad, it was like a newspaper clipping where it was about, how he was going to the military, son of LMA, and, he was gonna be leaving off, and, he's this military guy. My mother was raised up without a mother, and for her to make her way and become a nurse, raise up children who are so bright, brilliant, and entrepreneurial. All me and my brothers, we all are entrepreneurial. We don't honor that enough, and that's why we wanna take this time. The more we honor our ancestors, their spirits get stronger. Our lineage gets healthier. And I know we have a lot of toxic, people in our families, but we still must do the work. We still must remember. And for those of us who remember the spirituality, to me, it helps to usher in. First of all, it helps to complete it. Like, why am I going to be studying all this stuff about Africa, but I'm not looking at the spiritual system? Because let me tell you, baby, who are we without our spirituality, right? Like a culture that has a spiritual piece to it, you can't separate the spirituality out because it doesn't line up with what, people are saying is the right spirituality. You can't separate it. It's a part of the culture. So for me, it made no sense to not experience the spiritual tradition also, to bring in that completion. It helps to usher in the healing faster because we're not putting ourselves in a box. We're now out the box. And it helps to, heal all aspects of our people. Doesn't matter if you're my blood or not, you know? So, yeah, celebrating Juneteenth by saying, yeah, let's do this. Honor your ancestors, light those candles, dance. For some of your ancestors, you might need to cry. I want to tell you this one last little bit. Priestess Serene. Serene Rivers on YouTube. She makes music. I had her come in and talk to the initiates in my program one time, my initiation that I lead, and she fascinated me. She completely and totally made me like, you know what? It's certain things that is just okay. A lot of people are afraid to work with ancestors because they're like, oh, I'm scared. I'm going to call in a dark spirit. Well, we do that by saying, I'm calling on the ancestors of light, okay, which is really who you want to work with the most. However, we always, always honor the dark deceased ancestors, the ones that are stuck, the ones that did not live a life of honor. Because when we honor our ancestors, they ascend. Their souls get to grow and evolve. We help them to get to that point where they can escape the wheel of reincarnation. So we have to cry for them. Like when you cry and you miss your ancestor, oh, I miss them so much. It helps their soul to evolve, right? Um, and so, and like the dark ones ain't never gonna grow and evolve if we don't help them. So what we say to them is, I send you light and love. Oh, wait a minute. Dr. Cease, you can't stay here. You got to leave. I send you on your way with light and love towards your healing. But let me tell you what Serene said. Serene was like, I got all kinds of dysfunctional relatives, but she had no fear of them. She was like, she was like, one uncle showed up at her graduation and, he was drunk, gave her a bouquet of flowers. That was the best he could do. Oh my God, that was so beautiful to me. I was like, that is so true. It's like our ancestors experienced a rupture that was so great that even there's beauty even in the trauma. And can we honor that in them? Can we honor the beauty that is there despite, right? So, yeah, we just keep doing this work. We keep talking about it and we keep honoring them. And we usher their energy into these United States of America to continue to help us to liberate ourselves and to help our children to remember them also, so that we can continue to be able to come here and just be able to live. I want to also honor all of the activists. I was trying to make sure I name people who we don't typically hear, but we definitely want to think about reading the stories of all the activism. They're the ones whose names we know. And then there's the names of people like maybe it was your great grandmama who got on that bus. Maybe it was your grandmother who fed the children, or your great grandfather whose church hosted, some type of activism type of work. So we want to definitely make sure we are reading about, studying, and honoring the ancestors. And we call in this energy right now, the ancestors, amplifying the energy, bringing healing to this land. I'm going to even offer that these Afro ancestors of light and power and healing understand that everybody comes from Africa. And so everyone in these United States of America gets to benefit from the healing energy, the power, the might, the wonder of Africans, of African Americans, of all the Africans in the diaspora, because I love my Caribbean brothers and sisters, my Afro Latinos. I'm just so grateful. I am so grateful. We give you thanks, ancestors. And just like Maya Angelou said, we know, ancestors, that you walk with us when we walk into that job interview, when we seek to launch our business, go get that education, when we seek to be in a relationship with somebody. We know that you're leading, guiding, and directing our footsteps. Because I can tell y'all right here, right now, I know for a fact that ancestors that are the reason that I have a long marriage. My ancestors and my husband's ancestors, they were like, y'all gonna work this out. Rough times, work it out. Y'all gonna get healed up and y'all gonna stay together. And we're gonna show you how to do it. Give you thanks, give you thanks, give you thanks. Happy Juneteenth, 2024. Enjoy. Thank you for being here. Peace and love.